agricultural exports, South Africa's sugarcane farmers are facing a double whammy. Steep Trump tariffs and cheap imports are eating into their earnings. South Africa's sugar industry is worth over $1.4 billion, and it supports over 300,000 jobs. That is a substantial number for a country with one of the world's highest rates of unemployment, which is at nearly 33%. South Africa voted out apartheid more than 3 decades ago, but its legacy continues to live on, because it is the white minority that holds most of the agricultural land. Nearly 26,000 sugarcane farmers, most of whom are black, work alongside 1,100 large-scale growers. Now, these farmers are bearing the brunt of the 30% tariffs on South African goods imposed by the Trump administration.
Tariff thing now that has been imposed by Trump, it's going to have a negative effect in our operations, because now the price that we are selling the cane to the outside countries, it's going to be more. We have to have 30% more of the price, of which the customers will have to compare now which one is cheaper. Eventually they'll go for a cheaper price, and then it will affect us. They won't buy our sugar.
The sweet taste of sugar may soon come with a bitter price. Across South Africa, sugar farmers are facing a perfect storm. Foreign tariffs, a flood of cheap imports, and an increasingly fragile market are pushing an industry steeped in tradition to the brink of crisis. Fields that once flourished under golden sunlight are now shadows of uncertainty, as families, workers, and local economies tremble under the weight of forces far beyond their control. What happens when global trade policies collide with local livelihoods? The answer is unfolding now, and it could reshape the future of South Africa's agricultural backbone.
For decades, South Africa has been known not just for its scenic landscapes and mineral wealth, but also for its thriving sugar industry. Stretching across the KwaZulu-Natal region, sugarcane fields have long been a lifeline for rural communities, providing employment for thousands and sustaining generations of farming families. Yet today, these same fields face a mounting threat, and the warning signs are impossible to ignore. A key challenge comes from abroad. Recent tariffs imposed on South African exports by foreign markets have drastically altered the trade balance. These tariffs, designed to protect domestic industries elsewhere, have unintentionally squeezed South African sugar producers. Farmers report that the cost of accessing these markets has skyrocketed, leaving them with shrinking margins and mounting debts. At the same time, international competitors are flooding the global market with cheaper sugar, intensifying pressure on local prices. The result: an industry struggling to remain profitable while competing against imports that undercut the hard work of local farmers. The economic consequences are rippling far beyond the sugar fields. Small towns that rely on sugar production are seeing businesses close, unemployment rise, and social services stretched thin. Families that have farmed sugarcane for generations face uncertainty, with some considering leaving the land altogether. The human cost is real, and the communities built around this industry are feeling the strain. Historically, South African sugar has been valued for its quality and consistency, often fetching premium prices in international markets. But today, the balance is shifting. The combination of foreign tariffs and cheap imports threatens not only profits, but the very identity of a farming tradition that has endured for over a century. Experts warn that without intervention, these pressures could lead to a decline in domestic production, creating a dependency on imported sugar and further destabilizing local economies. So what can be done? Farmers, trade organizations, and the government are exploring multiple avenues to weather the storm. Measures include negotiating new trade agreements, lobbying for reduced tariffs, and investing in modernized farming techniques to lower production costs. Some cooperatives are seeking to diversify crops, while others are pushing for subsidies or financial relief to keep their operations afloat. Every strategy, however, carries its own set of challenges, and time is running short. Amid these struggles, there is also resilience. Communities are banding together, sharing resources, knowledge, and hope. Farmers are adapting, exploring innovative solutions to improve yield and efficiency, while government and trade bodies work to secure more favorable market conditions. Yet the road ahead remains steep. The global sugar market is highly competitive, and South Africa's farmers are fighting not just for survival, but for the preservation of an entire way of life. This crisis is a stark reminder of how interconnected our world has become. Policies and market forces thousands of miles away can ripple through small towns and rural economies with devastating speed. And while the challenges are immense, they also underscore the importance of strategic planning, sustainable farming practices, and international cooperation. The story of South African sugar is no longer just a local concern. It is a microcosm of the global agricultural landscape, where the stakes are high, and every decision carries consequences. As the sun sets over the cane fields, the future of South African sugar remains uncertain. Will tariffs be eased? Will local farmers adapt fast enough to compete with imported sugar? Or will a cherished industry face a slow decline under the pressures of a globalized economy? One thing is clear: the outcome will affect not just farmers, but communities, markets, and the very sweet taste of sugar itself. In a world driven by trade and competition, South Africa's sugar farmers stand at a crossroads. Their struggle is a story of resilience against mounting odds, of tradition meeting modern economic realities, and of local lives intertwined with global forces. The question is no longer just about sugar. It's about survival, identity, and the enduring strength of communities determined not to be swept away by the tides of change. But the ripple effects don't stop at farms and local communities. Analysts warn that if South Africa's sugar industry continues to weaken, the country could face long-term trade imbalances, higher dependence on imported sugar, and rising prices for consumers. What was once a stable source of employment and economic growth risks becoming a cautionary tale of how global market forces can upend a nation's domestic industry almost overnight. The human stories behind the headlines are just as striking. In rural towns, families who have harvested sugarcane for generations are now forced to make impossible choices, cutting back on workers, selling land, or diversifying into other crops. Schools and local services that depend on the economic stability of these farming communities are under pressure. Even small vendors who rely on local sugar supply are feeling the pinch, highlighting just how intertwined this crisis is with everyday life. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, innovation is emerging. Some farmers are experimenting with higher-yield sugarcane varieties, adopting advanced irrigation and harvesting techniques, and joining cooperatives to share resources and access new markets. Government agencies and trade organizations are exploring support packages, from financial relief to incentives for export diversification. There is also talk of negotiating trade agreements that could give South African sugar a more competitive edge internationally. Still, time is critical. Every month that prices remain low and tariffs high increases the risk that smaller farms could collapse entirely. And as the world watches, the question becomes, can South Africa's sugar industry adapt quickly enough to survive and even thrive under these mounting pressures? Or will this golden crop, which has nourished communities for generations, face a slow decline under the weight of global economics? This is more than a story about sugar. It's a story about resilience, survival, and the delicate balance between local livelihoods and global markets. The next steps taken by farmers, governments, and international partners could determine whether South Africa's sugar industry emerges stronger or becomes a warning sign for other sectors facing similar pressures.